Okay, so here's how we're going to be doing, what we're going to be doing today. Now, first half, we're going to be going through the patient system exercise, okay? So I'll be going through, I'll be demonstrating. You're going to be able to ask me questions. You're going to be able to post questions here on Padlet as well. So let's use the first half of our class today to go through this exercise, to go through the demonstration. And again, ask your questions. That will be the best time. Then in our second half, we're going to go through the midterm. So you're going to be using a lot of knowledge, a lot of information that you're going to be discussing here. By the way, I've never seen this class so full. So beautiful. Anyway, you're going to be using a lot of the information, a lot of what we have discussed here in the first half towards your second half, okay? So again, use this time well, pay attention, and ask questions, okay? Now, I'm not going to be the only one talking here. I want to see some interaction. So as I go through, I'll be asking questions. And again, I hope that you will all join me to try to put together our patient exercise, okay? Any questions before we get going? Okay, so let's get started because we have a long road here. Okay, so in our patient exercise, let's have a look at it. Let's read. Initially, let's understand a little bit. So your website is a registration tool for adding patients. Let me zoom this a little bit. For adding patients to a medical system. Registered patients will be held in a repository. Nothing too fancy here, okay? You don't even need to go with that iRepository and fake repository. You don't even need to bother with that. You can use very much what we have done with PAR-Invites. You have a very simple repository. Actually, you have a static repository, okay? You don't even need to have a dynamic one. So we can use a very simple strategy here. It's just in memory, no database, okay? So after registering a patient, display a thank you view stating, patient has been successfully registered as occupation on current date and time. Those words in bold, they need to be dynamic. So here we have the patient name, here we have the patient occupation, and here we have the date and time of the registration, okay? That's why it says the bold elements are dynamic, okay? Your site will include navigation for returning to the registration page and to a patient list. So the way I see this is a very simple three-view navigation, one to the home. Here goes for you, just for you. This was you waiting for you. But I don't have the map anymore, so you can have a quick peek at the map once you're ready. But that's okay, leave it. Actually, that's okay. So, where was that? And to the patient list, this patient will consist. Okay, so again, we're going to have a navigation item to the home page, which is the initial page of our system, to the add form, to the add a new patient, into the list of patients, okay? So three navigation options in our application, okay? We have to use all shared elements on a page should be placed in a layout file and use a single CSS. No problem, you can use a bootstrap. However, you need to show me that you know how to add your own CSS. Even if the CSS has one class definition, it's very simple, that's fine, all good. But add your own CSS. You can show me that you know how to create where to create the folder, where to create the CSS, how to add that to the layout file, okay? And we're going to go through those in a second. Okay, so again, this is just stating that the file should contain our styling. Each page should follow the same design, sharing a common look and feel, which will be shared via the layout file, okay? So let's start. Let's start here, top to bottom. Let's go point by point, but sometimes I'm just going to navigate through the application there. Let's go there. So create an ASP.NET Core 2.1. Let's create the project here. Okay. So here is our Visual Studio. I'm going to go to New Projects. Again, if you want to do this as I progress here, you can. I'll be going in a speed that's hopefully you can follow. If not, that's fine. By the end of the day today, I will upload this file, the source code, after the test is done. So I'm going to call this, for the sake, I didn't ask any particular name. I'm just going to call this patients. Oops. Okay. Okay, very important. Let's keep version 2.1. Let's not use neither an older nor a newer one. I've seen some people by mistake selecting ASP.NET Core 3.0. So 3.0 will give a few problems if you try to follow exactly what we're doing here. I mean, some of the methods have changed a little bit. So make sure that you select 2.1 and also empty templates and uncheck configure HTTPS, because otherwise you may get yourself in complications there that you don't want to at this point in time. Okay, so uncheck this as well. Confirm. Okay, so I have our basic project here. Now what? What should be potential? I mean, we can go different ways here, but what could be potentially our next step here? Let's create the folders, okay? So let's put the folders together. MVC, let's go with the M1. So let's go to add folder. So models, and I'm typing in the wrong keyboard. Models, and then our views, and then we have our controllers. Okay, great. So what? Let's again, we could go different directions, but let's take care of the plumbing part of our application first. What I mean by plumbing is the very basic infrastructure elements of our application. What should we do next? Startup. So okay, great. So let's go there. Let's do a few things here. Let's start from where?
Configure services.
Let's configure services here. Let's add. So let's go for services dot what?
MVC.
Add MVC. So we're gonna add the MVC services to our application. That's okay here. That's pretty much it in the configure services. And then under configure, let's do a little bit of cleanup first. So let's get rid of this. Okay. And then what? We can do the static already. The static is supposed to do what? To make available the www root folder, so we can make references to CSSs, to images that we may have. Okay. So we're gonna say app dot. If you don't remember the whole thing, just remember static. If you start typing static, and then you're gonna see use static files. Great. That's the first one. What is the next method that we need to call here in our app? We should call our, it will be enough for us to use our default routing. So if you just remember default and start typing default, you're gonna see use MVC with default routing. That should be enough for our application here. Our application does not use very complicated routing rules, so they should be enough for us. Okay? Great. Okay. Let's have a look what is asking what else? Okay, so we haven't taken care of the first one. How about we create this model? Okay, again, we're going to create a model now. Where should it be located? In the models folder. See, easy peasy, so easy. Add class patient, and we just have a set of properties here. Patient name, string, age, integer, address, string, occupation, string. Has insurance, should be what? A Boolean. Had previous operation, Boolean as well. Marital status. Okay, so string and enum. I would say that string is the least, I would say, desirable option, because usually when you have a field that has a very discrete number of options, we are better off with either setting it up as an integer, or even better if we do as an enumeration. I'm going to keep it in the middle, I would say. I'm going to set this up as an integer, okay? And 1 will be married, 2 will be single, 3 divorced, 4 widowed. Let's avoid the string, because in a real application, if you're working in the industry in a real application, you'll never see a field like this being a string, because it has a discrete set of options. They usually store a number related to each one of those potential options. Okay, it's more even from a size perspective, you are storing less information in the database by storing a number instead of storing a string. Okay, so we have method starts with which I'm going to keep as integer, and we also have the date and time that the patient has been registered. Okay, so we're going to have this one here as well. So I'm just going to start adding them. Now, to be quite honest, I don't want to do this manually. I'm going to do a bit of copy and paste here so we can use our time well. Again, there is not much here. This is pretty much comp229 101.
It's better to have an ID too.
You could put an ID. I mean, in a real database-driven application, you'd have an ID. This ID in the database would be automatically incremented. In our application here, you would have to find creative ways to deal with this ID. You could either ask the user to enter, which does not make too much sense, or you create it automatically. You could do something like, you could count the number of items in the collection, and you can say, for the first one, you can say, get the counter number, add 1, and becomes the first one. Get the counter number, add 1. That could be the rule to create an ID. I'm not gonna go with an ID here. I'm gonna keep it very, very simple, because we don't have a list, or we don't have a detailed view that we're gonna be using here. But keep this option of the ID in mind for the test, because the test may have a bonus question, bonus point there that would require you to have an ID. But again, it will be like a bonus. Anyway, I'll mention that once we get the test going. Any questions about the model here? Anything? Again, Padlet is open. If you want to use Padlet, you can. Okay, again, not much going on here. Okay, so we have our model. Let's have a look here. So create the model reflecting the collection. Oh, and yes, so here I have the registration date, which is a date time. Now, this one, I could sort it out in different ways. I could initialize this registration date in different places, but I have chosen to use this style here, or this way here. I can just initialize this property by saying equals to datetime dot now. That's it. So when I say that, when I say this now here, every time I create a new patient, registration date will automatically get the current date and time. So in the same field, we have, even though I just called registration date, but it's really registration date and time, because it will store both of them, okay? You could have done this in the constructor. You could have done this in the controller when you are adding a new patient.
Someone had left a laptop in here earlier, Bell laptop. I just wanted to know if it was still in the room. If anyone's seen a laptop, it's not there. I'll just check around really quickly. Sorry about that.
No problem, no problem.
Sorry about that.
No problem. Okay, so again, different ways to solve that. This was just my preferred way. You could have done any other number of ways, okay? Any question about that?
In this way, I don't need to set anything.
This-
Get out this, don't need to set anything.
You are already setting. You are setting this to the registration
I
date.
know, but I don't need that word there, set.
Well, you're right. You're right, you don't. Because this can be a read-only field. This can be, because, yeah, you could do that. Yep. Because we will not be changing these fields afterwards, the value, anywhere. Because once it's created, it's gone and done. Yeah, you're right. Okay. So we have this point covered. Create a repository. Let's do that already. Let's create the repository too. So as I said, I'm going to keep things very simple here. I'm not going to be using repository here. I'm just going to use a very simple static. It will even be static because we are not saving the database, but we need to keep the information from request to request. So I'm going to create a static class here. Okay? This will be our repository. Let's do that. So usually, where are our repositories sitting on? Which folder do they sit? Under modules. So let's create a very simple class here. I'm going to call it repository. As I said, repository, I'm going to make it as a static class. What is a static class? Oops. We don't need an object out of that. We can use it, we can just say repository. We don't need to declare anything, okay? So when I say we use a static class, it's the same throughout the entire application. Now, in a static class, all members, methods, properties, they are all static as well, okay? First thing that we're going to be doing here is what? What is the first thing that comes to mind when you are dealing with a repository like this in memory? We're gonna be creating a list. Should this list be public or private? Some private, some public.
Otherwise you can't call it.
So let's make it private, because in object-oriented programming, usually we keep data private and we expose the data via public properties. That's what we're going to do. We're going to have a private list of patients and a public method that will allow the external world to use that repository. So let's say this here. So private list of patients, yeah. Let's call this patients. And let's initialize it right away. Let's say new list of patients. And here you have. Now, it's complaining here because we are inside the static class, so it should be static as well. Okay? Should be good now. Yeah. So again, inside the static class, all members need to be static as well. So we have our private fields collection. Now let's expose this via a public property. So let's go public. I'm going to call this capital P patients. No, actually, the type first. So again, even though we declare this as a list, but usually we are using which type to indicate collections. Patient is the type of the items in our collection, but are we using a list here? Are we using IEnumerable? How are you declaring this public property that will expose patients? Let's use IEnumerable here. Again, IEnumerable is a parent of list. List inherits from IEnumerable, so we are fine here. So let's just say IEnumerable patient. Let's call it patients. And let's write a get. This is a read-only. Let's write a get here. Return patients. We could have used lambda here and make this a little bit simpler. Okay. Again, it's complaining here because of the static. All members need to be static inside the static class. Okay, so we have a place to store. We have a place to expose the patients. We are getting the patients here. Again, just using basic object-oriented approach here to private data in public properties. Now what? Now let's think about what actions should we have at this point? Because knowing what you know about this system, which action do we have to have for our repository? And I heard add. We have to have an add action. So we can say add this new patient to the collection. Okay, so let's do that. This is public. I'm going to call this, it has no return, so it's a void return. It's static as well. And I'm going to call this just add.
To view the list, we don't need any list action.
Here in the repository, we're not dealing with actions. Actions, we deal with the controller. So we're going to go through the controller in a second. Okay? Now, let's think about our adds. We need to have a parameter here, correct? What type will this parameter be? Patient. So let's go patient. And let's do a lowercase here. And then I'm going to say patients, which is my private collection, dot what? Dot add. And I'm going to pass the patient over here. And that's about it. Here we have our, now, if this would be a more complex system, we may have here an update, we may have here a delete as well, okay? We would have more action, more methods here. But for the scope of what we are planning here, this should be enough, okay? Great, let's go back to the list here and see, okay. Now, create a patient list view to display the list of patients. All patient information stored in the repository, including date and time, should be displayed, including date and time of registration. Okay, so patient list. But if I create right away a patient list, I'm not going to be listing anything because I don't even have a way to add patients to my list. So how about we start from our ads, our register, our registration, okay? Now, there are a few things that we need to put together before we get to our registration. See here. Just close this. Okay, so again, let's start to put the blocks in place. For me to create a view, what should we have before we create our view, before we get to the view? A controller. So we need to have a controller. What routing mechanism are you using in this application? Default. Because we use defaults, which controller is the default one? Which controller? Home controller. Okay? So I'm going to create the home controller. Okay, so I'm going to go here to the controllers, add. I like to go always via, like a controller, a new class. You can go via controller here. Again, there might be some different options there. I'd rather go just via simple class here. And I'm going to go home controller, which I'm typing in the wrong keyboard again. That's fine. Okay, so we have our home controller. Home controller inherits from controller. To inherit from controller, we have to add a namespace to the top, MVC. Okay, we have our default controller. Then what's next? How about we create our first action? What's the default action if you are using the default controller, default routing? It's index. Okay, so let's create our index. Let's go public. View results. Index. And then we have to return a view.
So when you do it with just the automatic controller setup, it comes up as I actionable, I believe. Same thing, just
if it's I actionable or I view results, it's just a parent of this guy here. It's a more generic one because when you use that, you can not only return a view, but you can return a redirect to another page.
Do kind of like a link.
Yes. So you have more options. You have more flexibility in terms of what you can return. Okay. In our case here, we are just returning the plain simple view, and that would be enough here. Okay, so before we get to our register view, how about we create a view that will show our index? The index will be our home page. Okay, so what should I do next to create this view here?
Create a view.
Where? Under views? Under home? Inside views. Great. Okay, so views, add a new folder. Again, it has to match the name of the controller. So I'm going to call this home. And then I'm going to right click. I'm going to go to new item. And again, if you want to go to view, that's fine. In the end, you're going to pretty much remove anything that this will put in place. That's the reason why I'll just go to new item, razor view. My razor view, my first one will be called index. I'm going to add. And for now, I'm just going to get rid of everything here. Let me ask you this. In our index, are we linking this view with any model? Are we linking? Are we displaying? Do we need to display anything in our home? No, not really. Okay, so again, no need to declare an at model directive. Okay, so we skip that one. I'm going to keep I'm just going to put a few lines here of HTML. Again, nothing too much. Again, I'm just putting a welcome message and saying, okay, you can register a new patient. You can see a list of patients. That's about it. Now, if we have a look at our what this is asking. It's asking for us to use a layout file, okay? So how about we create a layout file so we can use in our views. Let me see if there is. Again, ask. This time is for asking as well. So, how about to create our layout? Where should we place our layout? In a shared folder under views. So I'm going to go to views. I'm going to right click, new folder, shared. And then inside of shared, I'm going to say add new item. And then I'm going to say here razor layout. You can keep the same name. You can change the name. If you change the name, just make sure that at least you keep the underscore at the very beginning, okay? But you can change the name. I'm going to keep this name, underscore layout. And it's just coming up with a basic scaffolding of a page, okay? Now, in our index, how do I say that we want to use that layout?
The app brackets.
So we have to write a razor code block at the top, and we're gonna say here, how do I set the layout? Layout equals to, and then that name, no extension, so underscore layout. Now, the other thing that we have, yep.
But if I have just one layout, I don't need to write this one.
If you have just one layout,
Because I did write, I did type, it's working.
it's loading the layout,
Yes.
the correct layout.
Yes. Can I just have one?
If there's only one, yeah.
Okay, good to know.
Well, mine is working. I don't know.
No, again, I haven't tried without.
No, mine does the same thing.
Yep.
If you leave it out.
Yeah, if you leave it blank, it's working the same thing.
So if you don't put it at all,
Yep.
Yeah.
like,
It will miss.
okay, now I know.
Most of the time you have more than one.
In a more complex application, yeah, correct. But again, it's good to know that MVC is smart enough to even know about that as well. That's fine. The other thing that you could do is, because you're going to be using the same layout throughout the different views, you could have moved this to a view start. I'm not going to use a view start here, but you could have. The other thing that you're going to do here, let's handle our title, the title of our view, okay? In our layout, we are calling the viewbag.title to display the title of our page as a title bar. So here, how about we set this up? How about we say that title in our first page will be called homepage? Okay? Any questions here so far? So let's think about this. With what we have right now, if I try to run this, will it run? Will it show this?
Yeah.
It should. It should. Let's give it a try. Give it a try as you go along, but sometimes we miss something silly, and then we say, oh, I'm missing this or that, you know. So that's why I'm just giving it a try, because who knows, I may have missed something here. Okay, so we are good. It's displaying so far what we put together. Okay, so now, let's see. And again, you can take different paths to get this done, okay? I'm just taking my natural organic path here. There's no right or wrong if you do this before of that. I'm just trying to take some steps that I can incrementally I would be able to run the application and see it showing me something, okay? So what I would like to do, I would like to create a navigation. I would like to create a navigation bar, a navigation area that shows home, list, and add. Okay? Where should I add this if it's common through all views? In the layout. So let's go back to the layout here. I'm just going to do something very simple. I'm just going to do ASP-action. Let's say that this is home. Now, what am I missing here? Aside from action should be what? What should we put in the action? There. Index. Okay? Now, okay, this is fine, but you see, our ASP-action is not bolded, is not purple. So we did not add what? The tag helper. Tag helper, usually we add in view import. So again, it can be shared across all different views, okay? So view import, I create view import under which folder? Under views. So I'm gonna go to add new item, view imports. I'm gonna keep the name there. And I just have to add the tag helper that makes a reference to the tag helper so I can use it through the application. I don't know on top of my head that line, nor I want you to know, but I just want you to find a good spot that you can copy and paste. So again, we are using the directive add tag helper, and we are adding the tag helper here. The ones that will make available ASP action. What other ones that we have? We have ASP action, ASP4, ASP controller. Anyone else? There is one ASP that is used, for instance, when you, in your recipes, you create route, ASP-route-what? ID or any parameter that, any name that you might be calling your parameters, okay? So again, the ASP-route is a dynamic parameter, okay? We don't need to use it here. I'm just saying that because you need that for your recipe application. When you click on the list, it goes to the view details. You need to send, I don't know, the ID or something that you are able to identify that recipe. Anyway, let's get back here. So we have our home. Just going to put a pipe here to separate them. I'm going to add another one here. ASP dash. So action. Next one, I'm gonna add the list here. So list of patients. And I'm going to say, sorry, not this. So this is, I'm going to call the list of patients. I'm going to call, we have not created that yet, but I'm going to call it list. And the last link that we're going to have here is our add new patient. And for this one, I'm going to call this action. I'm going to call it register. Again, you could have called something else. Okay, great. So with this, if I run, I should be able to see them. Great, so, but again, if I try, they don't exist yet. So, but as you can see, it's navigating well. Great. So, getting back to what we were trying to do before, we're trying to create our new patients, okay? So, let's create this action, okay? Let's go back to our home controller and create that action here. register. And let's make it very simple as well. Let's just return the view. Now what? Now we need to create what? The register view, okay? So again, we are just calling view without parameter, so we are keeping the name of the view the same name as the name of the action, okay? Right-click the home folder. I'm going to add a new item. I'm going to go to ASP.NET, Razor View. And then I'm going to create a new view called register. I'm going to just select this and delete. Now, our register, are we linking to a model here?
List of models, the list of patients.
Our register, are we linking to the list of patients?
No, sorry.
We link it to one patient, correct? Okay, so let's go model here, patient. Okay, so why it's giving me this problem? Because we could have added the entire namespace to this class, or we can go to where can we add the namespace that will be applicable to all views? To view import, so I can go there and I can say at using, and then that's the name of the application, patients. Be careful with spelling here. It's very, very easy to do something wrong here. And again, now you cannot see the models. So, okay, so now our models is there. Patient is okay. Then what? Then what are we doing? Let's have a look at our index here. How about we add the same code block that we had before. So we are specifying the layout, view tag, so view bag title. In this case, we're going to say add patient. Okay. Now I need to build my what? My form. I need to build the form. So I'm going to start with a very simple form tag. By the way, just a quick note about one of the points of the assignment, which is a partial view. Partial view that I've asked to apply the partial view to the form tag. Okay? So what you can do is, in that assignment, you can just copy the entire form tag with everything there and move it to the partial view. And then from here, you can just call the partial view, but make sure that you send the model to the partial view, okay? That's it. It's very simple. It's not that complicated. Just copy the entire form, move it to the partial view, and make sure that you call the partial view and send the patient model, the model as the model of that partial view. Anyway, just a side note here. Okay, so form. What else? What's next here? What do I need to specify?
ASP action.
We have to add the action here. So let's go ASP action. And we have not created this yet, but I'm going to create an HTTP post action called register. I don't necessarily need to add a controller here because we're going to be using the same controller, home controller. So I'm just going to close this. Now, I do need to add the methods. Method will be a post. Okay? Great. So now it will be a matter of adding field by field. I have opted to lay out this form inside the table. If you do using divs, that's fine. If you do use Bootstrap, that's fine. Again, whatever. I'm not worried about how it will look like, just how it functions, if it's functioning, okay? So I'm going to do just a table here. I'm going to put a line, and each one will have the label. Let's say this one here, name. And then you're going to have another TD for the inputs. Inputs, which property are we using to link with the name? ASP 4. Then I'm going to say name. That's it. And then we do this for each and every property. Now, there are some properties that are a little bit more, a little bit trickier, but most of them are just regular, plain and simple inputs. Okay? Not going to type in all of them. I'm just going to leverage what I have already done. I'm going to show each field. So I'm going to just copy down to occupation. Now again, patient name, I link to name. Age, I link to the property age. If I try to put here something like a first name, well, it's going to give me an error because our model, patients, does not have a property called first name, but it has a property called name. So again, just linking one by one. Patient name, age, address, occupation, very simple input forms, input boxes, okay? Now, one that is slightly different is this one here. Has insurance. Actually, I don't even need to put type checkbox. The tag helper will do that for us. I can just say ASP-4, because this is a Boolean, the tag helper will automatically say, okay, so if this is a Boolean, I better create a checkbox, okay? So I can just say that. Again, this is not a regular input, this is a checkbox. This is not a text input. The same thing for the other one. The other one is heads, previous operation. Okay, so we are almost done. The last one here that we have is the marital status. This will be a select, okay? So we're going to be using a select. Okay, so here's what we have in marital status. We have a select control. We link to marital status. And I'm just going to list the values here. First one, I'm just going to say, please select. It has an empty value. We're not going to do validation here, form validation at all. Married 1, single 2, divorced 3, widowed 4. Okay? Okay, what are we missing here in our form? What is the last thing that we need to do now? We need to submit. So let's create our submit button here. So this is a button. This is the type submit. And this I'm going to call save. Now, someone from another section ask the question, but how do I specify which action will be triggered by this button? What's the answer to that?
You've already assigned it at the top.
Whatever you put as the action in the form. Because this is a submit, when you see a submit button, it submits the information that, it submits the form that it belongs to. Where? To this place, to this action. Okay? Now I'm gonna say save, and I'm gonna just also add a cancel. So I'm gonna say ASP-action. If I have a cancel that I want to go back to the home page, what should be the action here? Index. And then I'm going to say cancel. Okay, so with this, we should be able to see our form. Okay, so add new patient. Great, we have a simple form here. Let's take 5 minutes so you can brief a little bit, and then in 5 minutes we'll come back and we finish this. Okay, 5 minutes.
How do you put that on the home, in the whatever navigation?
How did I put that? In the layout. I just did this. Because I put in the layout, it's shared across all the views. Okay?
Before the render does
Yes, yes.
You show the thing again.
Yep. Which one? The
I think under register.
register? Okay.
Just a little bit up.
This?
Oh, it's the same one. I just want to double check it's different. Like, so when you come out, it's pretty like, in the beginning you said it's the same integer or if it's thing. It won't affect this. It doesn't affect because it's like a command.
Which one will not affect, you said?
It doesn't go back to the original patient C.
You mean this one?
Yeah. The name, if matched.
Yeah, they have to match.
They have to.
They have to match, yeah, because otherwise it does know which property are you trying to link here. If there is no equivalent in your model.
Okay, so it always links back to the patient basically.
Yes, to the model that is specified right here.
Which one model? Okay, cool.
Okay? Yep.
Here, if I want through patient ID, I want to make a hyperlink. It's like a.
I get it, but
how?
you should actually use
that's the thing.
ASP. So put the cursor here in front of A. In front of the A. Yep. Sorry, after it. Space ASP dash route
Actually, my route is
dash, and then you have to see what is the name of your property
in the
Agora
route.
coloca uma-
in the action. Go to your action.
Fez o green, né, cara? É igual. Fez o green era da hora.
View. It's called ID. Okay, so dash ID.
Não, chocolate, é verdade.
Patient ID.
No, it's ID
Here I'm sending that. Okay.
because it has to match this one. So there, you have to say dash ID equals to
Não vou questionar mais nada.
equals to this ID.
P dot like this because it's in the loop.
Yeah, dot P like this one here. Yeah. So get rid of this href here. You should be using the help tagger.
Only this and then everything is done.
Well, you have to put the action too. You have to call the action. The same we did right now. You have to say what is the action. ASP action. ASP action right there, form. See the form tag? You have to put the ASP action.
Questions about the assignment?
We're gonna, most likely we're gonna have a 10-15 minutes after this and before the test. So I'll make it available sometime so you can ask.
About one of the deliverables for the next one,
Yep.
and one's about the review.
Actually, let's have a look. Did something? Yeah. That just finished there?
So, thinking about implementing a database on the next one,
For three. For three?
For the three.
Yep.
I did, instead of doing a repository as we did in Pastement, like this, I did more like the sports store. So an interface,
Yep, that's fine.
and then there's the
Yeah.
static repository, right? But I don't know why every time that I insert add recipe here, I do this, it doesn't add.
It doesn't add to where?
It doesn't add. It doesn't
Where?
show.
Oh, it doesn't add to the database, to the memory. Where are you expecting it to add?
Add to the repository. And then when
Can you show me this add recipe? Can you show me this method?
yeah. Here. Just adding to the list of recipes.
Okay, scroll up.
Yeah,
Okay, so let me ask this. Are you going to use the fake repository or the real repository? Or database repository? Because you mentioned database, but you are using fake.
yeah. I did the interface because next we're gonna do the database, right?
Yeah, so you are just handling memory right now?
Yes. These are like dummy data that I already put there just to have something so I can test my recipe list.
Yeah, so if you're gonna be adding to the fake one, if you see the sports store, in the sports store it doesn't add the fake one, because the fake one you have to have a static class. You have two options for the fake one. Either you have sessions, which becomes a little bit more complicated, or you're gonna do the repository that we did now. You're gonna have to make this repository as a static repository, because otherwise it won't survive across requests.
I did.
You did?
Yes, it's working.
But
Not static.
it's not static. But which with the fake one?
In the startup, you need to add transient to an interface, to both.
Yep.
But when you create an interface, you create a fake repository and add items. You can through the pages, can go through pages using the same object.
Same. Okay.
The same list.
So follow up, because I was under the impression that you would have to have a static one to be able to do across. That was my experience. Again, show him what you did.
Yeah, because in the startup you have three: scope, transient, and the default one.
So you use transient?
Yes.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, but the transient. Yeah, I don't. Have a look and see if it's doing what you were expecting to do.
I'm gonna already create a database.
I would say that jump to the database, because in a way you are spending too much time this.
Yeah.
It's not useful.
I think
It's
it's
better
better.
if you hit your head against the wall for the database part. That's
Number three,
useful.
right, database.
Yes,
DB contest,
yes. The whole shebang. Okay, you had a question?
Yeah, I'd like to know how can I download the Core 2.0, 2.1. Did you remember when you was creating the project?
Yep.
That you said
You don't see that?
I just have 2.0.
So put on Google, downloads .NET Core 2.1. You're gonna see the link there. .NET Core 2.1 or whatever version you want. Okay, let's carry on here. Okay, let's carry on so we have time to have a look at some questions.
And then when I download it, implement by default.
It should show up there. Yes, it should show up in your Visual Studio. Okay? Okay, go ahead. So we start right here. We had our save, we have our cancel. Great. Now we need to actually save this. So what is it that we do next to perform the saving? We need to add what? We need to add our post. Our post what? Our post action. So we go back to our controller and let's create another action here. I'm going to return, usually with posts, we usually return an I action result because then you have the option to move to another view or to validate and stay in the same view. Again, for the sake of this exercise, we're just going to use a view result again. We're going to return a view result. But now, two things. We need to decorate this action here with what? So HTTP post, and then what is the parameter that we need to send to register? So we need to send the patient model. This, via model binding, this form gets automatically linked to a patient, and when we are back here, we magically receive a new patient. You know, so we're going to say patient.
In that HTML, we are creating a new object.
Yes, MVC is creating that for us. Yes, in MVC we trust. Funny, in another section, when I said in MVC, someone right away said, we trust. I was expecting the same thing, but I'll keep practicing. Patients, okay? Okay, it's complaining that patient, we don't have the namespace here. So here we go. And it's complaining about what? Oh, it's just that we didn't finish yet, so that's fine. So what are we going to do with this patient? We're going to call what?
Add method.
From which object?
From the list.
Which can be accessed by using which object are we going to be calling here to be able to save this in memory?
And repository.add.
Repository, which is our static class. Again, we don't need to create an instance of repository dot add, and I'm going to send over the patient. Great. So let's see what the okay, let me see this question here. Why not creating the form by add view select template create view? Okay, you could have done this. I'm just, if this is what you mean, add view, you could. I just saw that in some computers this worked, in some computers this didn't work. Usually this will not work if your code is broken already. If there is an error in your code, this may not work. Usually you have to make sure that your code is compiling before you are able to use this. But in the end, even if you do this, yeah, I mean, you could have used this. I would rather do it manually so I can explain you all the different elements. But you could have done this. I think that this is the, yeah, this was the question here. You could have done this. Okay. So let's go back to our explanation there. So it says here, registered patients will be held in a repository. After registering the patients, display a thank you view stating, the patient has been successfully registered as occupation on current date and time. So, based on that, what are we going to do next here? Another view, let's create a view here called, I'm going to call it thank you. I'm going to call this thank you. Our thank you view, does it have to have a model? Well, here's the thing. Look at this. It has to display this text, but we have to replace this and this and this, patient, occupation, and current date time with the dynamic information from the model. So, yes, we do have to link this to a model, patient, and then we're going to, which properties are we going to use? Well, we're going to say, we're going to use model dot name, model dot occupation, and model dot date, registration date. Okay, we're going to use those three. Now, you're going to use this inside this text. Okay, so we have patient is the name, occupation will go under and replace occupation, and registered date we're going to use and replace the date here. Now I'm going to add this inside the heading. So I'm going to add this inside an H4 heading. Again, just to make it a little bit bigger, but that's basically it. Now, we have created our view. So we have to go back to our controller. And now we have to load that view instead of a view called register. So we have to do something like this. Return view. Now, if we just do this, it would load register again. But we need to load thank you. So I'm going to say, as a string here, I'm going to say thank you. But I also have to send the model to this view. I have to send the same patient that I'm receiving here, I have to send to it. So I have to say patient. Okay? With that, we should have our thank you working. Let's have a look. Okay, so add new patient. Let's say John Smith. Oh, I've copied it twice. I have to fix this. Okay, John Smith has been successfully registered as a coder. Okay, we are missing one thing here. If you go to the thank you, what are we missing here? The common elements, we're missing the layout. So let's copy this code block to the thank you. And let's say the title is thank you. So let me refresh this. And now we have the basic navigation there. Okay? Okay, so great. So now we have our add new patients. Natural thing would be to go to and build now the list of patients. But let's do two more things. One, I would like to add a little image there to represent the logo of the application. That's one. And two, I would like to add a CSS as well. So let's start with the image here. So where do we store static resources like images, JavaScript, CSS files in the www root? For an image file, we're going to create a folder called images. Just going to organize it like that. Actually, I should stop the application. I'm going to call it images, and I'm going to use an image that I already have here. Okay, so I'm gonna call this image from within the layout. It will become the logo of our application. I'm gonna put it right at the top. Again, I'm not looking for design, special design here. I just want to know, do you know how to add an image? Do you know how to add a CSS? That's what I'm looking for. Source of the image will be the image folder. Patient. Again, I recommend to get rid of the tilde here. Let's have a look of how this is looking like.
Where you were removing the tilde?
I've seen, I have to clarify what the tilde is doing, but I've seen some problems with that being used. So
You can use dot.
yeah, or you can just use the slash to go all the way to the root folder, to the root of the site. Okay, a bit too big. So how about we adjust the size of that? But I'm going to adjust the size by creating a custom CSS. I'm going to say class equals to logo. And I'm going to define a CSS file under www root. Which folder should I create here? CSS folder. So let's go to add folder. Sorry, let me stop this here. So add folder CSS. I'm going to create a CSS inside of it. So let's go to new item. I'm not going to add Bootstrap. Again, feel free to add to make it, if we have time, I may add as well, but I'm not going to do that right now. I'm just going to add a file called styles. Again, you can name it however you want. Just make sure that you have a folder for style sheets. And here, I'm just going to add that logo definition. I'm going to say that this has the width of 80 pixels.
Copy and paste my style sheet.
You can, if you have your style sheet already in place, that's okay. Of course, we are missing something here. I mean, I created the style sheet, I added the definition. What are we missing here? Because we are missing the? We didn't link. So where are we going to link this? In the layout. So I'm going to go to the layout. I'm going to say link. Rel style sheet. And then href CSS styles. And And again, I will remove this just to make sure. If we refresh this, now we have a more reasonable size there. Okay, great. So yeah, we added the image, the logo, we added CSS, we have this one here covered. We have this, see, we have this covered. Layout file, single CSS, great. Next one here, which is our last step, really, is the patient list. To put that together. So, what do I do now? What are we going to do next to put together our list view? So, let's go to our home controller and create what here? The action. So let's go public, view result, list, and then we just send it over. We call return view. Okay, so are we sending anything to this view? The actual,
patient repository.
the repository. So we are sending the actual list of patients. So you're going to say repository dot patients. Okay, that will become the model. Now let's create our list view. Okay, let's go to home, add, new item. I'm going to create a razor view called list. Now, what will be the model linked to this view? So we're going to say add model. Again, what is the model?
List of patients.
So we could place a list. If we would do a list here, most likely we would have to convert this to a list as well. So I'm just going to go with an I enumerable of patients. Again, let's follow what we have done in the other ones. Let's add the layout and the title. This will be list of patients. Okay. Okay. Then what? A for each. So let's go for a for each. Now, if I can write, oh, I can't. Now, before we start the loop, we're going to present this inside a table. Before we get the loop going, we should add the header of our table. Okay, so let's add this outside. Let's say tr. And we're going to have a column for each property, like name and so on. So I'm just going to copy this HTML here. Okay, again, each and every property here, just the header. Now, our for each will be inside the table. And you're going to say for each what?
patient inside the list?
For it could be patient, it could be var. Let's put it a patient. That's fine. It could be also var. So for each patient P in model, okay, and then we open curly braces there, and we're gonna go line by line. I'm gonna say tr, and then each column here, we're gonna say at p dot name, and just do this for each and every property. P dot, let me see here, this is the order. Age, P dot address, P dot occupation. For now, let's just use P dot has insurance.
So we are showing everything in the.
In this one here, yes, we are showing everything for this exercise here. P dot, because we're not going to be doing a detailed view, okay, we're just going to do this one. Merit status. Again, we're going to do some adjustments here, but for now, let's just display everything like this. Okay, so again, just each and every single property there. Let's run this. And let's see if this is working. I did not fix this yet, so let me fix that form already. Okay, so here's the summary, is the thank you, actually. And if I go to list of patients, here we have the data, we have the information. Now, let's do a few adjustments here. First one is actually 3 adjustments. Let's replace, instead of true and false, let's replace with a yes and no, okay? And instead of merit status being a number, showing a number, let's check the value of merit status and return a string for that, okay? So let's go to our list. For has insurance, we're just going to use the inline condition operator, okay? So we're just going to say has insurance. If this is true, return yes. Else, return no. Make sure that you add this inside parentheses, otherwise you're going to get an error. Same thing here with had previous operation. I'm going to go question mark if it's true, but yes, else, but a no. Let's see if this worked. So right now we see true and false. If I refresh, we see yes and no. Great. What else? Marital status. How are we going to handle this? Which structure do you recommend to use here? A switch. How about we use a switch? A switch statement. So we can do something like this. At switch merit status, then we open curly braces, and we add the cases. Case 1, I'm going to say at column. This means that whatever goes after that is plain HTML, plain text. So I'm going to say merit. What are the options here? Okay. And I have to make sure that we put break. And we're going to do this for each one. We're going to do for 2, for 3, for 4. I'm going to say single. Let's see. Divorced and widowed. Okay, any questions? Anything else here? Let's refresh there. So merit status 2, then we have it. Let's have a look at our definition there. So create a list of patients, view to display the list of patients, we did that. All patient information stored in the repository, including dates and time of registration, we did that. The list view must display the list of patients in alphabetical order. We have not done that. So again, make sure that you refer back to the test as well, to make sure that you are covering every single point that is asked, okay? So how are you gonna guarantee that we are ordering alphabetically? Where should I go to do that? I should go to the action, to the list action. What should I do here?
Order by, dot order by.
That's it. So just order by P of patients, such as P dot name. With that, I'm saying that order by name. Okay? I could say order by age, by anything. Okay? Let's try this. Let's test this. Okay, so let's add 2 patients here. Let's add John. Has insurance and a single. Okay, so we can see John there. Let's add another one. See this married, save. So if you go list of patients, you see, even though John I added first, but because the list is ordering by name, we have it ordered by. Again, we can make this look better if we add Bootstrap, if we add a few classes here. But before I do that, let's see if we have covered our exercise here. Let's keep going here. So create controller actions to support the functionality of each page in general site navigation. We did that. Create a CSS file to style your views. We did that. We didn't add too much there, but hey, we have added. Implement best practices and accepted conventions and standards in your codes. Include only files and elements necessary to complete the test. Again, avoid adding unnecessary stuff there. And what do I mean by that? Well, I'm not saying that you do that. Use an empty template. If you use, let's say, an MVC template, it will add a lot of stuff there that you won't be using. So again, make sure that you just keep whatever is necessary to run your application. Place files in the appropriate folders. We did that. We have created CSS, images, controllers, views. I think that all is in place. Use a consistent and logical naming convention for classes and variables. I think that we covered that as well. And be consistent in the application of CSS. We're not doing much CSS here. Okay. Questions?
Can you see the registration HTML page?
The registration, the view?
Where is the view?
Yep.
And not the view, the form.
Oh, the actual page? Okay.
So here, I don't know, when I make the age, when I say integer, it says 0. How did you make it?
Actually, I think that this is being done. Let me have a look here. Because keep in mind that the tag helper is very smart. It knows, it assumes a lot based on the data type that you are linking to. So let's have a look at this. See, by doing this, by using the SP for age, again, tag helper knows that, oh, age, what type is age? Age is an integer. So it adds for us a bunch of things here, see? It adds that the type is a number. The browser is recognized that this type as a number. Let me see if I cannot zoom there.
How does it know it's required? Did you flag it as required? Oh, I guess because it has to be validated to
Did
be.
you put in the input also ASP for age?
Okay, so first thing is that I did not add as required, but I didn't add a question mark. So because in my model, yeah, so it cannot be a null. Okay, so it assumes that it's required. But again, we are not doing validation here.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, so does it make sense? Yep. Any more questions? Okay, so what I'd like to do, well, we have two options here. I can open some of the questions that have been submitted and go through them a little bit. Hopefully, what we discussed here will cover most of them, but I can open and have a look and see if there's anything else that we can add, or I can open the floor for any questions about assignment 2 that is due for tomorrow. Again, maybe give some thought there, see if you have any questions. In the meantime, I'll be picking a few questions from the ones that were submitted, okay? So give me a second. I'm just gonna, because I also don't want to show the names of who asked what, so I'm gonna flip to the other view here for a second as I try to select anything here. Okay, 1 second. Yeah, so also you can use Padlet. I see some people asking Padlet, that's fine.
codes,
The codes, which codes?
the one earlier on the home control.
If you have it open, oh, to see it here? Yeah, I'll show it in a second. Give me just a quick second here, okay? Because I'm just picking a few questions here from the ones that I have submitted. Which view did you ask? Did you ask which view? Which the controller was the controller? Okay, so here, this part here. Was that one? Okay, so I have a few questions here that I selected, and also I have. It seems that there are a few questions here in Padlet as well. Can I move there? Done? Are you done? Okay. Okay, so for assignment 2, does ASP-route-ID from the view pass the selected ID to the controller action parameter specified in the ASP action? Yes, as long as the parameter that you are expecting has the name ID. Okay, so that's correct. Yes, yes for this one here. How do the details view? How to do the details view? Well, you have to get the ID, you load the recipe, and then you send the recipe as a model of the details view. Okay, it's very similar to what we just did with the thank you view. We send the model to the thank you view. Again, the same idea. You load the recipe, and then you send that recipe to the details view to display that recipe. More than that, I should just give you the code. Okay, so a few questions here about the bonus. Again, related to what we just went through. How do you handle navigations and the CSS references in the layout? I think that this was covered. Again, we did the navigation in the layout and the CSS as well. So the navigation here, the CSS here. How do you display your name under the copyright line? Well, you can just write it down. I mean, there's nothing special here. This is you just write it down. Again, nothing special here. It's just static text. You don't need to make this dynamic at all. How do I show the date and time according to the computer time? Well, just to make it clear, this is according to the server time. And this is how we can do it. There are different options, but this is how I have chosen to do it. I set it right here. Datetime.now will return the current date and current time. Next one. I have a few more and should be okay. So, is there a better way to save registered time to the repository? Well, for me, the best way is this one. There are many other ways. I would not have taken points if you did something different than that. That's fine. This is just one of many ways.
So is it constructed, so when you load the page, because you're calling a model, it's being constructed when you start the page, right?
Yes.
So it'll get the date time when
Yes.
you start the page, not when you actually hit save.
Okay. Let me think about that. Actually, it's when you save it.
Yeah,
Because
that's when it's generated.
yeah, because when you call it, you don't pass a model yet. You didn't pass a model. When you submit, then it gets created. That's that point.
So when you created the action, you didn't create any post, right? So
I did.
HTTP post as well?
Yes. See, that's the one. Okay. Okay.
Default, it is the get, right?
By default, yeah. By default, it becomes. And again, you can even make this more explicit if you just say HTTP get here. You could say this. Is there a better way to save checkbox to the repository? Well, again, what I've described is the better way that I can think of. Is the best way that I can think of. You know, you just link, it becomes a checkbox, and that's in model binding does its magic. Is there a more effective way to display lists? Again, a more efficient way. Again, you have to loop through it, and again, I don't see a better way to do than this one here. Okay, and last one, let's just have a look at this. How to create date and time properties in model, okay, that's been covered. How to save date and time, that's been covered. How to display the list of patients in alphabetic order. Again, we did that in the controller by calling patients.orderby and specifying which property should we order by right here. Okay? A few more questions here. Can I put my own CSS in Bootstrap CSS class, or is it better to have two separate files? Please, don't mess around with Bootstrap. Keep Bootstrap there, use it as is, and then if you want to maybe customize, enhance, modify, do that on your own class. Create your own file, keep it separately, and again, don't mess around with Bootstrap file. Keep it as is and create your own. So again, create, it's better to have two separate files. That's my recommendation. Okay, let's do this. Let's have 10 minutes, then we come back and we start our test, okay?